These questions are designed to unfold and explain your teachings and are asked in the context of the teachings of Ramana Maharshi, which reflects the ancient wisdom. There is a fundamental question: who am I? Who are you?
I'm consciousness. I'm that which is hearing these words right this moment. And so are you.
Would you like to expand a little bit?
It wasn't clear?
It's very clear to me, but if you would like to expand that.
That which can be expanded is that which can be expanded on is that which I am not. On that which I am, there is very little that can be said other than I am, and I am this consciousness. It has to be experienced and not really put in words.
Okay, thank you. Many seekers are looking for enlightenment as if it is an experience. What is enlightenment?
Well, I think that different teachers may have different definitions of it. And there are various words: enlightenment, awakening, self-realization. What is important is to make a distinction between a first glimpse of our true nature and the subsequent establishment process that leads to our abiding knowingly as this presence. So the first glimpse of our true nature could be called enlightenment because it is a very profound experience that brings about 180-degree shift, if you will, in the way we view the world, people around us, and most importantly ourselves. So this glimpse, having radically transformed at its very core our view of the world, acts then, it's like a pebble falling in the center of a pond. Then gradually all the fish and plants and algae and whatever in the ponds are touched by the waves that has been generated by the falling of the pebble, and that propagates and gradually invades the entire surface of the pond. So it's the same. This understanding or this glimpse of our true nature over time transforms all the realms of our life and unites them. That which was beforehand fragmented or compartmentalized becomes united, and that which was seen as conflict becomes opposition, and then becomes complementarities, and then blends in oneness.
And is that what makes it from a glimpse into an abiding as enlightened?
Yes, there is the glimpse brings about a transformation, a radical shift at the very center of our being, a shift that cannot, which is irreversible. And however, in most cases, the old belief systems that were built as a result of ignorance remain as residues. And at the somatic level, there are also feeling systems, behavioral systems that remain in place. They simply have lost, all of a sudden, their foundation. But for some time, they keep a seeming life. There is an image in the Indian tradition. They compare these remains with the ashes of a rope that has been burned. For a while, the ashes keeps the shape of the rope, but then the wind blows and everything goes. So this second part of the sadhana, if you will, the post-enlightenment sadhana, is the blowing of the wind that disperses the residues.
You talked about the glimpse. It seems quite often when there is a glimpse, which might be a glimpse only for a few seconds, tremendous fear sometimes arises in the same moment as the beauty of the glimpse. Could you say something about that?
Well, there are two kinds of glimpses. There are incomplete glimpses that are preparatory glimpses. A glimpse is a moment of understanding or is an experiential moment. But there is a fundamental glimpse in which the residual individual entity merges with the source or vanishes in the source, and the source sees itself in its majesty, in its infinity, in its eternity, in its splendor. And that's the glimpse I'm referring to. In that glimpse, there is no room for fear, because the fear was even prior to the I image or the I residue that merges. So there is a moment when the fear, in the glimpse there is no room for fear. The glimpse is the eternity of presence. It is the celebration also of presence. It is the love. It is the absolute infinite happiness, infinite certainty. There is no room for fear there.
Nevertheless, it seems quite common that fear does arise and then this glimpse simply disappears.
Yeah, that's something else, perhaps. The fear can come back after a glimpse, and it can come back as one of these residues I was talking about. But then because something has been radically changed at the very core of our being, the fear cannot take a hold. It may appear as an old habit, if you will, or even because a fear is usually triggered by thoughts. And the thoughts that trigger fear are thoughts that revolve around the idea that I am a separate consciousness, that I am a separate person, that I am a body-mind. Once this belief has been eradicated by the glimpse I was referring to, the thought I am a body-mind can still arise as a habit. But because the experience is there of what I truly am, this thought can no longer maintain itself. And as this thought vanishes, the fear that it was triggering vanishes with it.
You also mentioned just now that perhaps there is a kind of post-enlightenment practice. Yeah?
Yes, yes, yes.
Could you say something about that?
Yes, it's a kind of cooperation, a kind of willingness to cooperate with the process of it. Let's put it this way, using the metaphor of the rope, of the ash, the residues, of the wind that blows, the wind blows. It's like helping the wind by blowing yourself at the ashes.
Would some people call that grace?
Well, everything is grace. Yes.
Well,
yes,
everything is grace,
yes,
but
yes, yes, it's blatant grace.
blatant grace. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Are there any qualifications for enlightenment? And is practice necessary? And if you feel so, what form of practice do you suggest?
For the glimpse we were referring to, the only qualification I can think of is an overwhelming desire for it. And this overwhelming desire has to be stronger than the fear of absolute disappearance, the fear of death, which lies at the root of ignorance.
Do you think that fear that you're just mentioning would be something to do with what happens in a glimpse, that something happens and you're totally touched, but then in the same moment this fear of annihilation is also there somehow?
Yeah, this fear, as long as the fear of annihilation is there, the glimpse is not complete, because the fear of annihilation is that which stays in the way of our eternity. It is only this fear of annihilation. Behind it, there is a little me, and behind it, there is infinity. The fear of annihilation is a defense of the little me. The little me is like a very old, very weak dictator and tyrant. And the tremendous fear of annihilation is his elite army, his elite armed forces and bodyguards and police that surround him. And they are formidable. They are a formidable force. But once you have penetrated within, then the little tyrant is old and very weak. And just seeing you, he dies. You see, so it is the same with ignorance. Ignorance as such cannot maintain itself. It protects itself with this rampart of fear. And the closer you get to the core of it, the better armed the guards, and the stronger the guards, the more courageous they are in defense. So the more formidable the defenses you face. But at the end, all of a sudden, all of that vanishes, and then you find that in many traditions. You know, they are called the guardians of the temple.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That is the origin of the gargoyle, you know, in our cathedral.
Right, right.
The meaning is these monsters placed at the entrance of the temples, symbolically, you know, they are there to filter out the ones whose desire for the truth is not strong enough to frighten them, therefore they are not going to enter the temple.
And as far as spiritual practice, you don't see any preparation needed through spiritual practice?
The best spiritual practice is the self-inquiry, is to investigate not who am I, but rather what am I? What am I? And I have a slightly different version of it, but it's the same. It's simply more surgical, more precise, which is, how do I know that this consciousness I know to be, I know I am, that which is hearing these words in this moment, how do I know that this consciousness is personal, limited in time, in space, dependent upon this body or this limited body or this limited mind? How do I know? What's the evidence? Because most of us believe that there is a strong evidence in support of this belief. But as we begin to investigate, we feel that there is absolutely none. Nothing, zilch, nothing, zero. Nothing that can resist a sincere, honest, and serious investigation. And this investigation into the evidence that is available to us, that consciousness is separate and personal, has to be conducted at two levels. At the intellectual level, the level of thought, because we have all kinds of belief systems as to who we are, but also at the feeling level. Because even if intellectually we get pretty clear that there is no evidence, we may still have a visceral feeling. I am here. You may think above there whatever you want, but I am here as a person. Somewhere I read Ramana Maharshi upon asked the question, when I seek the I am, should I seek the I thought or the I feeling? And his answer was feeling. It goes deeper. Mm. In other words, Advaita cannot be only at the level of words or of thoughts. It has to go at a much deeper level, and that was achieved through silence, through...
I mean, it seems quite clear around Ramana himself. There were many people who spent many years with him, sitting together in silence. And they probably had given their questions away many years before.
Exactly.
And so there must have been something else happening, which could be exactly this transmission that you're referring to. Yeah. My next question actually was about self-inquiry, so I don't know, would you like to maybe go a little deeper into your particular method of self-inquiry?
Well, no, I can...
How you would really do that?
It is not a method, you know, because it is the opposite of a method, I would say. I would say that any method of self-inquiry is limited. For instance, and not only is limited, but is a misunderstanding of what self-inquiry is. The first method would be for instance, to have a timer that gives you a signal every minute, and every time the timer gives you this signal, you ask yourself the question, what am I? Or another method would be to repeat, what am I, what am I, what am I, like a japa, you know. But it doesn't make sense. Because if you keep talking and saying, what am I, there is no room for the answer. You are always projecting your own stuff. So really, the important element of the self-inquiry is not the question, what am I, being asked, but rather the listening to the answer. So it could be said that the question, what am I, it would be enough to ask it once, and then to listen to the answer. And then our life, in all its details, our daily life, then becomes the listening to the answer, you see? And that's not a method. Otherwise, the image I use is this one. Let's take a Scotland Yard detective, you know,
Okay.
who is investigating some murder, and he's looking for the bad guy who has done it. If his investigation is just him coming to the office in the morning and asking who did it for 8 hours, then going back home to have dinner, he's not likely to be successful, right? So it's enough for him to ask who did it, right, once, and then to interrogate witnesses, to see what the forensic evidence is, to see what the autopsy results are, etc., right? And to do his best efforts, and to keep the scope of the investigation as open as possible. Not to have too many preconceived ideas about who did it, because that can also be an impediment in his investigation. He has to be completely open-minded and see the facts, and have as big a scope as possible in the beginning. So it is the same here. You see, it is really our life. So if you are a truth lover, already a truth seeker, the fact that you are truth seeker means seeking the truth, meaning you are asking a question. And you are asking the question, what is the truth? What is the truth about myself? So as a truth seeker, you are already doing self-inquiry. You are in the middle of it. So you don't have to ask the question any longer. You have just to do your investigation.
When Ramana was asked, when will the realization of the self be gained? He replied, when the world, which is what is seen, has been removed, there will be realization of the self, which is the seer. What is the true understanding of the world, and how to remove the world.
It is not only the world that has to be removed. It is the world, it is the body, and it is the mind. It is the world, the sense perceptions, the body, the bodily sensations, and the mind, the thoughts. What is pointing at, or to, is consciousness seeing itself in the absence of objects, in the absence of perception, in the interval, which is Turiya, the fourth state. The fourth state is the interval between two perceptions. When there is nothing else to be seen, consciousness realizes itself. As long as there is an object in the landscape, this object may be a sign or an indication that there is something else than consciousness. Then there is an external reality. But as consciousness sees itself alone, in the absence of any object, it realizes its autonomy, its independence. It realizes that it shines of its own light, like the sun and like the moon. So I am explaining that with words, right? Just as Ramana Maharshi did. I'm just elaborating on this. But yes, that's when the world has been removed. When the world has been removed, then the world can no longer be a valid candidate to be a support of consciousness, or to be the reality of consciousness. When the mind has been removed, the mind can no longer be a valid candidate to be a support or the reality for consciousness. Then consciousness reveals itself as being self-supported or self-supporting, autonomous, alone. And then as the world, the body, and the mind reappear, they reappear as being made of consciousness, because consciousness has been seen as being their substance. Consciousness has recognized itself as being the substance of all things. And the consciousness also has realized itself as not being limited to this body or to this mind, of course, but as being eternal, as being omnipresent, since as being omniscient also, because only consciousness knows, and it knows all things because it is the same consciousness in all beings.
It's been suggested that the mind must be destroyed for liberation to occur. Do you have a mind? And how to destroy the mind?
Yeah. When that, these words have to be understood in context. It depends who has said that. If Ramana Maharshi has said that, I would say, okay, perhaps since he didn't speak English, the translator has translated mind, something that Ramana Maharshi perhaps said avidya, ignorance has to be destroyed. And the translation was mind. If anything has to be destroyed, it's avidya. And avidya, ignorance, is the belief that I am a limited consciousness, that I am a body-mind, that I'm a separate person. And that's the only thing that has to be destroyed. Now, the mind, there are many definitions of the mind, you see. The one which I find the most precise is the following. First, I establish a distinction between mind and consciousness. Consciousness is that, whatever that is, which truly perceives these words in this moment. That's consciousness, whatever that is. I don't bring in any preconceived ideas about what it is. Whatever it is which is hearing these words right now. That's consciousness. Now, obviously, it is the same consciousness that hears the words, that understands them, that feels the feelings in the bodily sensations, and that perceives the world outside. It is the same. We don't switch consciousnesses in our experience, right? We don't. So it is the same. Now, the sum total of everything that is perceived, bodily sensations, thoughts, feelings, external sense perceptions, I call that mind. So that's my definition of mind, you see. Now, when it is said that mind has to be destroyed, no. Only perhaps a part of the mind will vanish. But there is a practical aspect to it. Does it mean that after having realized your true nature, you are no longer able to understand or to speak English or French, that you are not able to drive your car, that you are not able to read? Obviously not. Ramana Maharshi had glasses and he would read. So obviously this part of his mind was not destroyed. So what is destroyed is all the belief systems, and by the way, feeling systems, that have something that hinged upon the belief that I am a separate consciousness. So that disappears. It is virtually destroyed at the time of enlightenment, virtually, potentially, but then it is the actualization of this destruction takes place over time in the stabilization process, if you will, up until one abides in peace and one abides knowingly in their true nature. So only a fragment of the mind, therefore, and destroyed gets erased.
I mean, I have heard it argued that in Ramana Maharshi's case, he didn't have a mind, and that he spoke a bit like a radio, that it was as if something was transmitted through this apparent mind-body organism called Ramana.
But that's very true. But it is not true of Ramana only. It is true of everybody. It is even true of the ignorant. The difference is that the ignorant thinks, I, as a person, am speaking. But what is it that is moving the tongue and the lips of the ignorant, if not the eternal mover of all the movements?
Right.
You see, there is only one mover, there is only one thinker, only one speaker. The individual has zero power even to think, or to speak, or to raise his hand. It is all the unfolding of reality. It is all the unfolding of the universe. Therefore, I, as an individual decider, thinker, chooser, or doer, is a total illusion, and that's ignorance. It's part of ignorance. the difference is that as Ramana Maharshi spoke, he spoke knowing who was speaking. Whereas the ignorant speaks and doesn't know who is speaking.
Right. I think that's extremely important what you've just said, because I really feel there's a lot of misunderstandings about this dead mind, you know, and a lot of people get caught up trying to kill their minds, and you can't really kill your mind.
What does it mean? Yes, they try to stop the thoughts. Good luck. Good luck, because it's like you have the pressure cooker, right? You have the gas burning under it, and you have the safety valve on top. It's like blocking the safety valve. Good luck. At the end of the day, the pressure cooker is going to explode, you know, and it's going to be a big mess in your kitchen. Same thing here. If you try to prevent the mind from thinking by some kind of effort, without removing the ignorance which is at the origin of this erratic type of thought, the pressure will build up. At some point, it has to find its way out. Now, it is true, on the other hand, that as a result of the understanding and of the experience of what we are, and as a result of the subsequent elimination of the belief system and of the feeling systems that were consistent with us being a separate individual, there is room in the mind as a result. Because this agitation, all these thoughts, which I call involved thinking or personal thinking, they just disappear. So there is plenty of room, but the mind is not inactive. The only mind which is inactive is one of the corpse. The corpse has a perfect electroencephalogram, right? Perfectly flat. But other than that, I mean, the mind is then a beautiful tool to celebrate, to play music, to travel, to create poetry, to cook, to be with friends. I mean, there are many things which are a celebration of life. After having the goal of life, basically, and by life here I mean of this experience between the birth of the body and the death of the body, the meaning of life, the goal of life, the mission, is twofold. On the one hand, to discover who we are, and then for the rest of the time, as this body, to celebrate the discovery. You see, it's not to discover one arm and to kill the body, no. Or to live the rest of your life in a cave, no.
No, I think this is very clear, and I think it's something that's worth making very clear, because so many people seem to be caught up with some kind of practice designed to kill the mind, and it doesn't really work, and then there's a lot of frustration.
There are, coming back to the idea of practice, there are practices that are effective also after a glimpse in the stabilization process. The welcoming, meditation, sitting, devoting some time during the day, but not making it too, I cannot say here too Germanic, no. Ostpreußisch, to disciplinary. No, but when you feel inclined to do it, to devote some time to sit in silence, welcoming the thoughts, welcoming the bodily sensations, to get in tune, so to speak, because with your true nature, because our true nature, consciousness, is welcoming. That's what consciousness does, welcome. If consciousness wouldn't welcome anything, this thing would simply not appear. The moment anything arises in consciousness, it's because consciousness is welcoming it. The one who opposes it is some clown who interferes with the picture, and which is also part of the picture, right? But consciousness itself is like the paper the picture is painted on, and welcomes whatever ink or watercolors are placed on the picture.
So what you were saying about something that could happen after the awakening or after the glimpse, I find that very interesting.
Yes, so a practice, because we, as I said earlier on, we can cooperate with the removal of the residues of ignorance after ignorance has been virtually destroyed, or let's say fatally wounded by the glimpse. We can cooperate with the dissolution of the residues of ignorance, which are found at two levels: at the level of thought as belief systems, and also at the level of the body as contractions, feeling systems, behavioral patterns. So at the level of thought, we have to reevaluate everything we believe in. For instance, political beliefs, or point of views we have acquired from our past. If you have been trained as a scientist, for instance, you have a certain point of views about nature. And you may tend to believe that they are universal. And there is perhaps some arrogance that goes with it. And then as you become a truth lover, you learn that, as Jesus said, there are many rooms in my Father's mansion, and that perhaps the scientific explanation of nature is one, but there might be other rooms. You see, so in other words, it is a total revision, or we have to revisit everything we believe in. And at the end of the day, to be free from all beliefs, and especially to be free from any beliefs that even remotely is tied to the beliefs that I am a separate entity. These have to disappear.
It seems quite a common phenomena that people will have a glimpse that might even go on a few months, but then, you know, in the everyday family life, being a husband or a wife, having a job, then somehow everything closes down again. We get re-identified.
But it is not what I call the glimpse. You see, and that also has to be, is worth, you know, elaborating on. There is such a thing as a spiritual experience, or a samadhi, in which we experience a pleasurable state, or even causeless joy, more than a pleasurable state, and a temporary relief of the misery of ignorance. And at the same time, such a state teaches us there is a greater reality beyond, and somehow you are that. But this state has a beginning in time, lasts for a while, and then disappears. Because a state is a state of the body and of the mind. the mind has been struck, in that case, either by the clear vision of what we are, in which case that's a glimpse, or by a getting closer to what we are, and that would be in that case like seeing the light behind a very thin and translucid curtain. Whereas in the first case it would be like the moth merging with the flame of the candle. Now Ramana Maharshi uses himself the analogy of a bucket being lowered into a well. And then as a bucket, so that's the individual mind, body-mind, being lowered in the well is the self. But and then being removed again, as the bucket is removed, it is still full of water, so for a while enjoys the presence of the water within, but after the water has evaporated, finds itself dry again because it's out of the well. Whereas his image, I don't remember, I think it's for the case of the true glimpse, is like a little statue made of salt, which is thrown, or sugar, which is thrown into the well, dissolves. It becomes the water. Nothing can be removed from the water once it has become the water. So that's the image. So we have to establish a distinction between these two, between a state which is elation, which is and which has a beginning in time, an end in time, and a glimpse which is a dissolution of everything that was personal in eternal presence. And after such a glimpse, the identification is not possible again. It's a non-reversible. However, for a while, the old residues can still be there.
Could we call these residues tendencies of the mind?
Vasanas, yes.
Vasanas, yeah.
Tendencies, yes.
So the next question really is about vasanas, tendencies. Must these be removed before self-realization can become permanent? And how to remove the tendencies?
Yes, that's the right question. Before self-realization is not a temporary experience of bliss, but it is a dissolution of ignorance. The vasanas remain but they have been deactivated by self-realization. But what they do is that they prevent the truth seeker, who has been liberated and has become what in India they call Jivan Mukta, through the liberation. They prevent him from enjoying for a while completely the fruit of his understanding, of his realization, of his liberation. And that's where the post-enlightenment, if you will, sadhana, takes place. Normally in the Indian tradition, under the guidance of the last guru, which they call the Karana guru, that will lead the disciple to the abiding in his true nature. And it is with this abiding in one's true nature that the peace can be, and the joy and the celebration can be enjoyed, really.
It appears essential to meet a master and surrender to that master. Who is the master? What is the master's role? And how to recognize a true master?
The master is the self. There is only one master. The master is the consciousness. The human master is only a puppet in the hands of the true master. Or it is his PA, you know, his PA device. You know. The role of the human master is simply to relay the information that comes from the self, and also both ways somehow. Jean Klein used to say, and I say the same thing because that's the truth of my experience, when someone asks a question, I listen to the question, and then I listen to the answer, and then I speak the answer. You see, in a certain way, that's how it happens. His role is to point to the direction of the self by his words, by his nature, but most importantly by his being and by his presence. His demeanor will have the signature of truth. You see, the authenticity. We know that, I mean, a woman, if her husband is cheating on her, somehow, at some level, she knows it always, right? We don't, because just kidding, just kidding, but she knows it. And you know if someone is sincere at a deep level, you know, and it is this sincerity that kind of communicates itself. The fearlessness also, because with the fearlessness, there is liberation, there is joy that comes with it. All of that communicates itself. After my first meeting with Jean Klein, it was I met him in private in Nice, I mean in Saint-Paul-de-Vence in France, and after the meeting lasted for about an hour. And then I had a long drive back home, 300-kilometer drive back to Marseille. And I was reflecting upon the meeting while driving back in the car because I was seeking a master, I was seeking a realized being. And my thoughts were, I don't know whether this gentleman is realized, but I know for certain that I would like him to be my friend, to become my friend. You see, there was something about him that felt right. You see, that felt right at a deep level. And after all, because you ask, how do I recognize a master, or how do I find a master? You don't need to reach this conclusion. One doesn't need to reach this conclusion right away. Nobody forces that. This conclusion will come to us at the right moment. But one should always follow one's heart and one's intelligence. The master should fulfill the heart and the intelligence in us. If it fulfills only the intelligence, it's not enough. If only the heart is fulfilled, it's not enough either. I mean, I would always go for the heart, but but it's nicer to have the full package. And the full package also may also include beauty. You see, so if it is beautiful, if it is loving, if it is intelligent, then yes, I would go for it. And also, our duty as a truth seeker or as a truth lover and our allegiance is not with or to a specific human person. It is to the self, because the self is the master. Therefore, one should always seek to have the masters that one feels is the best for oneself. One shouldn't try to go to someone because this person is closer, because it's more comfortable. One shouldn't buy the truth on sale. You see? One shouldn't be pinch pennies while buying the truth. I mean that in a metaphorical sense, not for personal comfort, not for personal convenience, but rather one should listen to one's heart and intelligence and ask oneself, who do I think is the better teacher, is the best teacher for me? And if he lives in India, if it was what it takes, I go to India to meet this guy. You see, that's how you recognize a truth seeker, that he has really this will, this desire to find the best, because he loves the truth. The truth is at the pinnacle of his interest and of his love, and then this one will find the master.
So you're saying really that if you want to find a true master, you have to first be a true seeker.
Right. Oh yes. Not a seeker of something else.
Right. Not a seeker with a long beard or something.
No.
Yeah. What about destiny? Do you expect things to simply happen, or are you expressing your free will and choosing?
As a person, as a limited human being, there is no free will, there is no freedom there. I mean, an illusion cannot have real freedom. You see, I can dream of something, of someone, in my dream. And this person seems free to act, to choose their thoughts, to choose their words as they interact with me in the dream. So in the dream, they seem to be free. But as I wake up, it turns out that they were not free to choose their thoughts. I was choosing their words for them, right? So it's the same here. Something which is an illusion cannot be truly free. So the separate consciousness cannot be truly free because it doesn't truly exist. So the freedom can only be found at the level of presence. And there it is absolute. And as a result of that, going back to destiny, it is not that presence has alienated its freedom way back in the past as it designed our destinies as human beings. And that everything has been preconceived and pre-designed in time, in the past. And that the events are unfolding mechanically, inexorably. No, everything is not predetermined, but rather preordained. But there is a difference. Preordained, in my definition of the word, pre doesn't mean before in time, but means from a timeless place. And this timeless place is a place of freedom. And therefore grace is free. Nothing is predetermined. The future is open. You see, the future is open. The future is not predetermined. It is preordained from the timeless place. It is not the same. It is not predetermined from the past, from a point in the past. It's not planned like I plan a vacation. I plan a vacation 3 months ahead of time, right? And then all the sequence of events, I make my reservations, etc. But our life, although it can become a true vacation, It's a vacation which has not been planned. There is freedom in it.
It was interesting when I called you, you see, because I sent you an email, which I think you got about the same moment I was calling you. And you probably were a little surprised, it kind of out of the blue. But it's very interesting that immediately you were able to say yes, you see. It was like you could simply accept that this was supposed to happen. And that seems to be a quality that I've noticed in many masters. They're very spontaneous and everything's simply decided. It's not complicated.
Well, sometimes it's complicated.
But I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Traditionally, devotees had tremendous devotion to the master. Please say something about devotion in the pursuit of awakening.
It's normal that the devotee is devotion for the master, because the devotee sees the absolute in the master, and the master is the gateway to the absolute. So it is normal, but so it is the devotee sees the master as the absolute, and the master wants the devotee to see him just as a friend, and doesn't want to allow the devotee to see him as the absolute, because then the devotee could be confused and to believe that the body of the master or the mind of the master is the absolute, whereas the body of the master and the mind of the master are not different from the body of the devotee or the mind of the devotee. So a true master doesn't allow really for the devotee to put him on a pedestal. But it is normal for the devotee to see the absolute, the ultimate in the master. And I could see with my teacher, it was a very strange relation, because at the same time I was seeing him as the absolute. At the same time, I was seeing him as a wonderful friend. You see, so for instance, I would because of this immense respect I had for him, when I would speak with him, I would use the vous in French or the sie in German, and not the tu or the du. And so but my heart was saying tu or du. So I would. In English, it's very hard to explain that. But so there was this, at the same time, this distance of the respect, and there was this proximity of the friendship and of the love. You see, it was.
You were saying earlier that it's necessary not just to work with the intellect, but also with the feelings. Yeah?
Yes.
And so I think in a way that's to do with what you're talking now. Yeah, this devotion is another aspect of the transmission.
Yeah, but the devotion is above all the devotion to the truth, to the presence. The human teacher is just a gimmick. You see that it's just a puppet being used by the great puppet master to take us, to invite us to the party. You see, so that's. But yes, the love for the truth, the devotion, it becomes that which trumps everything in your life, and it should. It is this the intensity of the love for the truth that is the only agent, in fact, of the glimpse of the understanding. It is the only prerequisite.
Seekers often have curious ideas about the enlightened state. Please describe your typical day and how you perceive the world.
My typical day, right now I get up very late because I'm jet lagged. But on my typical day, I will have breakfast and I will play the flute. If the weather permits, I play some tennis. I hang out with friends. I cook for my wife. I spend some time with my family, with my wife, my children. I enjoy nature. Sometimes we travel. And sometimes people come and ask questions. Sometimes I answer questions on the internet also.
Right, right. I mean, we experienced you when we arrived and in the break when we photographed you walking in the street and so on. I mean, of course, it's kind of completely normal. But sometimes people have an idea that it should be super normal, super...
Yeah. You know, the beauty is not that there are something that are extraordinary. But the beauty is that that which was taken to be ordinary is in fact extraordinary. That everything is extraordinary.
Then you're really celebrating.
Yes.
Everything.
What else? Yes,
Everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Quite ordinary things can be celebrated because, as you
Everything.
say,
Celebration is every moment. That's a mission of life.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have set aside the concerns of being a separate entity, then what else is there to do as to have a good time, you know?
Perhaps you should enlarge on this subject of celebration, because that's something I was experiencing very much with my first master, Osho. He was very much encouraging, you know, leave the lights on the whole year, not just for my birthday, he would say.
Yeah. Birthdays are ridiculous. I mean, every day is your birthday.
Right.
Every day is your birthday. But we have, I mean, our instinct for celebration is wired in us. So we don't have to do anything special. We just have to listen to we are all different. We all have different God-given skills, talents, and as a result of the not identifying with the body-mind, all these God-given skills and talents and tendencies also find the plenitude of their expression somehow. I mean, I'm a poor musician, I'm a poor tennis player. Those are really not good, you know. and I enjoy tremendously both things and many other things, you see. You don't need to be good at something to enjoy it. It's a spirit in which you do it.
Right.
The enthusiasm, you know, but not that I am attached to it, you know. If it rains, I cannot play tennis. There is something else that is going to come up. You know, the universe also always has something interesting. So, in other words, we don't have too much to worry about programming our activities. See, they come up in the
Would you
spirit
say
of the
that this
moment.
element of celebration is a kind of, I don't find the right words now, but a kind of fruit of consciousness or fruit of silence, something like that?
Yes, exactly. That's what it is. Because that's the object, the manifestation as a whole, is there to glorify the presence, to celebrate, to glorify the presence. And so all our activities, when we are no longer under the dictatorship of ignorance, when we are in this freedom, everything we do comes from and is directed towards presence. In a way, our life becomes a work of art, because that's what a true work of art is. It is something that Malraux said, it is a work of art is an object which is a man-made object that points to presence, like the pyramids, you know, or some Gothic cathedral or Roman churches, or the Parthenon.
Would you agree that some of the great artists of the past, which when maybe we didn't say, oh, he wasn't awake, and Michelangelo was awake, and we maybe wouldn't say that, but somehow somebody like Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, I mean, there are many great artists, they actually speak from consciousness. They transmit very directly.
I would say yes, great artists, the inspiration comes from presence. Mm-hmm. Whether the artist himself was liberated or not, I'm not sure. But we recognize the signature of presence as the source of inspiration of Rembrandt, Vermeer, and Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, and many more. Some, like Rumi and Kabir, for instance, obviously they knew what they were talking about. These were enlightened. I don't know about Cézanne, but you can see that all of them had this spiritual fiber in them. They were trying to paint the unpaintable. They were trying to celebrate in their music God or the spirit. So they were aware of the high origin from which their inspiration came. They were aware of that. And some of them, because they were still in ignorance, the only moment in their life where they could enjoy some relief was during this process of creation, where they would come back to the source and find some relief at that moment. And the rest of their lives, they were in the situation of the addict, you know, or the drug addict when he is in a state of lack. Mm. But definitely the works of art themselves came from that place, and because they came from that place, they have the signature, the stamp of that place in them, embedded. As we see them, as we listen to them, they have the power to take us back to that place. If we contemplate them, if we let them guide us, take us by the hand, they take us. And there are not too many like that. When I go to museums, of fine arts museums, for instance, there are not too many painters that really attract me. It's not because the painter was ancient or modern. No, it's not. That's not the question. There are not too many, because often an artist displays great technical abilities, but something is missing, and that which is missing is the most important. But sometimes the beauty is there, the presence is there when you look at some painting by Holbein or Dürer Rembrandt. We went. There is
even Matisse.
Yeah. But Laurent was pointing at me. We went. There is a painting by Rembrandt where he paints. It's a portrait, a group portrait of the surgeons of the hospital in, I don't know, in somewhere in Holland. You know, they are with these big white collars, and they have paid a lot of money. And so the portrait is very detailed, you know, very expensive. You can see, and there are these professors of medicine, and usually this type of painting, of course, they were the top dogs, right, in the hospital. So they are there to show that they are big shots. So usually the model is represented in a posture like that. And Rembrandt paints them, and you see the sweetness in the face, and they are natural. And he doesn't paint the big shots. He doesn't paint the great surgeons. He paints the sweetness. You see, that's the artist. That's a signature.
You've given us a profound discourse on awakening. When you would meet someone with a passion for awakening, what would your short advice be?
I cannot. It will depend. It will depend. I cannot. You're asking me to. It depends. I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Depends.
Mm-hmm. I mean, earlier you mentioned this longing as being very important.
Yes.
So would you encourage that?
Yes, you encourage it, but it is that's a gift of grace. You know, that's you have it or you don't have it, and there is very little you can do. You cannot. You see, everything, as Robert Adams used to say, all is well and unfolding as it should. You don't have to convert anybody. But if someone comes with eagerness and with love, then it is going to be a mutual joy. You see. And we don't know what's going to happen in this meeting, but it's going to be beautiful.
Thank you. Is there anything you wish to add to the dialogue? Thank you. It was very lovely.